welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. U. In studio with us, Lee Freeburg, former Navy combat vet, product designer, father, husband, founder of Freeburg Design and Automation. The man's doing a little bit of everything, man. Lee, good to have you in the house, brother. How are you, man?
Doing well. Thanks for inviting me on here. This is exciting.
Oh, yeah. Same here, brother, man. Well, you got a lot going on in life, man, and we had a fantastic conversation regarding this. I just kind of want to get into it, man, because there's just so many things about your life that, even though I didn't live the exact same life, obviously, just so many things that I just resonate with. Things regarding, wanting to be healed as a man, stepping up and doing my thing as a father and a husband, and then a disciplined lifestyle and seeking the Lord for answers to those spiritual questions and how to find my purpose, man. You deal with all that stuff, man. So I want to get into it. But first thing out of the shoot, I always ask all of our guests, man, describe your childhood and your upbringing. Most times that goes pretty smooth. Sometimes it's triggering. We're ready to embrace it all, man. But go ahead, man. Your childhood and your upbringing. Tell me about young Lee, man, and what life was like for you. Go for
it. Yeah, awesome. My childhood is one of adventure and God's hand of leading. I was adopted at 2 days old. Okay. I didn't even know my original biological family. The only family that I knew were my parents, the Freeburgs. And they raised me as one of their own. Like, I was no different from my brothers and sisters. I was a Freeburg from the day that they adopted me forward. My grandparents never treated me any differently. Uncles, aunts, everybody. I am a Freeburg to my core, by the grace of God. He knew what he was doing. And just about 11 years ago, I got to meet my biological family. And once I got to meet them, I'll tell you, it was like God opened my eyes to like his miraculous intervention. I'm not saying I don't like my biological family, but what their life, what they went through in life and what I went through in life are two different paths. And had I not been adopted, I would be in a totally different place. And I know we talked about this earlier about like, oh, if you weren't doing this now, what would you be doing? That's what I'd probably be in jail, most likely, or dead. It was just that rough for them. But by the grace of God, he put me into the Freeburg family. He gave me a Christian home to grow up in. Times were tough. We went through some struggles. Yes. But then he just kept leading, kept taking care of us. And by his grace, I'm here today.
I love the story, man. I don't, without exposing anything that should be confidential, tell me how that came about. Because I hear stories about this pretty often over the years. Tell me how that meeting came about with your biological parents. I mean, because for me, with my biological father, I sought him out. He wasn't looking for me. I sought him out. I basically chased him across the country. I mean, I got podcast episodes and stuff on the stories. It's all books. It's out here for people to consume. But how did your meeting with them come about, if you don't mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes back to when I was about to graduate high school. My parents, I've always known I was adopted. They'd never hid it from me. When I was 18, my parents gave me the paperwork, a petition that I would send into the state of Wyoming, that's where I'm originally from, to have my records opened and looked at. But I didn't need a family. I didn't need to know any medical history or anything. I was 18 years old. I'm just starting my own life. Yeah. So about 12 years ago, as I was getting older and kind of settling into life and going a direction, I realized I needed to know what my medical history was. And so I got out the petition form, filled it all out, sent it to the state of Wyoming. And about 5 weeks later or so, I got a call from the state, an operative of the state, somebody who handles these things. And we had a little discussion, and then she began to reach out to my biological family and send them cards and calling them. And then one day she calls me up and says, "Hey, Lee, I've got great news. I've made contact with your biological mother, and she is interested in meeting you. Are you interested in meeting her?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." So she swapped phone numbers between me and my biological mother. A couple hours later, I was actually on the phone with her for the first time. This was January of like 2014. And I talked to her for a couple hours. Got off the phone with her, and then my biological sister calls me. And by the time that conversation was over, I was so brain dead. I mean, I was just out of it, anything that I didn't even think about. But I was so stoked and excited. And so I just told them, I said, hey, what are you guys doing this particular weekend? And they said, oh, we don't have anything. And so I planned everything out, got rigged all together, drove up to Billings, Montana, where they live now.
Okay.
And I spent an entire weekend with my biological mother, biological sisters and brothers, learning from them, getting to know who they are, hearing their stories, hearing about their life. It was an exciting, exciting weekend. And then I would go see them about every other month for about 2 years and just go up there and spend time with them. Eventually, I did meet my biological dad. He's still alive. And we began to form a relationship, build a relationship there. And then, of course, life moves on, and you kind of go back to your normal whatnot. But I still talk to them pretty regularly, a couple times a year. I try to go see them as often as possible. But yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Okay, well, that's amazing. It's much better than my story. But I have a two-part question for you. One, when you made that phone call, or when the phone call was made to you, how it went down, what was the very first question you asked? My second part of my question is, how is your family, the Freeburgs, dealing with the integration of these people who, were originally, I guess, supposed to be part of your life, and now they are now a part of your life in the latter part of it? Kind of answer both questions for me, if you. Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
So I couldn't tell you what my first question would be. It's been 11 years since that phone call happened. I was just so excited to hear their voice, and just to make that connection. Like, I know you've been out there. I know that there's been a couple of attempts to reach out to me. And so when I made that phone call and it's like, hey, are you so-and-so? And she's like, yeah, are you Lee? And I was like, yeah. So, oh, it's exciting to meet, talk to you and whatever else. And it was a really good conversation. About a year into it, I asked my adopted parents, said, hey, would you guys be interested in meeting my biological family? And I asked the same to the biological family, hey, my biological dad and biological mother were just a hookup. I'm a one-night stand baby, is basically what I am. And so my biological dad, even though he kind of was around my biological mom and her kids, he wasn't like their dad. And so it was very interesting to get him and his mother, plus my biological mom, and then my whole adopted family, my
Wow.
parents,
So you-
my grandparents, everybody got together one place. We had a big meal together, really had a good time. They talked, the different, my grandparents and my dad's mom are about the same age. So they had commonality, and we're farmers, and we grew up in the same kind of environment. So there was a lot of connection between the two. Do we still get together now? No. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably make it happen, but it's not a priority at this point. You know what I mean?
Okay. Even with your sister, you guys don't get together with them?
No, we chit chat over the phone about once a year or so, but it's different because I am their brother, but I'm not their brother, if that makes sense. Like, I'm related to them, but me, who I am as a person, I'm more of a Freeburg than I am one of them. Does that make sense? So while we have nature similarities, we don't have environmental similarities. I go to church. I believe in the Bible. They believe in God, but church is the last thing they'd want to do. You know what I mean? So
I think I get that. So honestly speaking, I want to just ask this last question, then we'll move on to some of the things that you've been doing that are so cool. But do you have any feelings about the fact that things haven't been developed further between you and them? Not so much the Freebirds, but just you and them, because there's a connection there. Obviously, you can't really avoid that part. Do you have any feelings about that? Anything that's kind of like, not regret so much, but just kind of like, do you have any feelings like questions about why this is not happening and why this can't be different or why it can't be better? Any feelings about that?
And that's a great question. And this is actually something that I personally have had to deal with. There was a point in my life where I was looking at reciprocity. I went up there, I went up there, I went up there, but how many times did they come to me? How many times did they come down to me?
I
There
mean,
was my oldest brother. He came to me about 3 or 4 times, which is super awesome. And we actually have more, like we hang out more than my biological sister actually drove past my house and never stopped and whatever. And I was just like this is a 300-mile journey, and you just drove by my house and didn't stop. Like, okay, that's your choice. I'm not going to hold it against you. One of the things that I told them, this is one of the main things I told them when I met them. I said, I don't care about what you did in the past. The fact that you gave me up for adoption is probably the most amazing things, best choice you could have made for me, for my life. But what matters is what happens from here forward. We're now in contact, and you have the option to be in my life or to continue to be in your place. And so they made their choice. Yes, I want them in my life, and so I make an attempt to connect with them and whatever else. But if it's not reciprocal, I can't control that. And so I've, in a sense, detached my negative feelings towards their behavior because that's their choice. And I can't force them to come to me. I can only invite them and say, hey, my door's open to you. All you have to do is come.
wow, that's powerful, man. It's really big of you to do that. That's like I said, my story is somewhat similar, but it's just not even as positive as that, to be honest. But let's keep moving, though. Your experience as in your time in the Navy, specifically, I guess in Iraq, perhaps, did it prepare you or fail to prepare you for the life you had to live as a husband and a father, but also as a civilian? Do you see any areas where it's helped you, or maybe perhaps it kind of left you hanging out there and you needed some insights and you didn't have it because of that time? If that makes sense to you?
Yes,
Comment on that?
absolutely. So the military teaches discipline, right? Commitment, discipline. You live by a schedule, you live by a routine, and it makes life a lot simpler. You get used to somebody always being there to be able to tell you what to do, what's next, and then occasionally, you learn to take charge in the moments that you're supposed to take charge. And the military was really good at teaching that and giving me purpose, a direction. This is what I'm supposed to do. But everything was so automated that life was easy in the military. Even deployment. I mean, being in combat was easy because it's just a preset tape that I would just, okay, combat, boop, I'm in combat. Emotions gone. Any thought, fear for my own life was gone. I just did the job. And then at the end of the day, we would go home to our compound and play cards, and just do normal life, cook our meals, have a good time. And the military, while it put all this discipline and this consistent, work, grind, success mindset into me, once I left, I really had no purpose. I had no mission. I had no direction. I didn't have a boss to tell me what the next step to do. I had to make my own decisions. And even at 27 years old, 27 years old, I was still really, really immature. And so I went out into the civilian world. I was used to having a purpose and then life being pretty much automatic, and it wasn't there. And so I had to start make my own choices. So I did what I thought everybody would do. I went and did security work or found the easiest job to work on and did that because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. It was years later before I actually sat down and said, I want to go this direction, or I want to at least do something purposeful with my life. But I was still in that immature, and I call it the weak man phase. From pretty much 2000 to about 2015 timeframe, I lived the weak man mentality.
What is that? What is that?
That's the weak man is the man who seeks after pleasure to numb out the pain of having no purpose.
Wow.
He uses distractions. He uses girlfriends or drugs or anything that takes his mind off of the responsibilities of becoming the man he's supposed to be. And in this weak state, we make bad, negative choices that negatively impact the remainder of our lives. And we begin to put scars on our brain and our heart because we go from relationship to relationship. We go from this drug to that drug. We get dependent on alcohol or somebody else's approval of us to say, I have a valuable life. When really that purpose should come from inside, and we should build on that with discipline and become our own man, the strong man. And the strong man is the man who is able to make the tough decisions.
I love it. I love it. That's some good stuff right there. I can't ask I always wanted to ask my father that when he was alive, but because he was in the military too, I believe he was in some combat in Nam. But so I can't ask him that. He's not here. But I want to take the opportunity to ask you: do you ever really get past the combat part of your career, even as a civilian? Do you ever really get past it, or is it something that kind of is it like a part of it that lingers on, or do you? I mean, I don't know if you're a Second Amendment guy, and I definitely am. And you know, I walk around just because of the way I don't train as much as I need to, but I think about that kind of stuff. I'm in situations. I'm always alert and watchful and stuff. But being in combat was just so much different. I'm sure. You ever get past that part of your career? How do you adapt to civilian life after having experienced that kind of situation? Speak to that if you can.
That's a great question. I thought on that. Combat for some is a traumatic event. But combat for some is an enjoyable lifestyle. There are many vets. Many vets volunteered, like me. I volunteered to go on deployment. I mean, I constantly was trying to go on deployment, constantly, just any opportunity. Just I want to go on deployment. So I got my opportunity in 2007, where I went to Iraq with EOD company, and I was on an EOD team, and we rock and rolled over there. We had for combat, we had a good time. Come back from there, and I'm excited for the next deployment. And that for me, I think it was more about this is what I signed up to do. Like I signed up to go to war because that's what the military is supposed to do. We're not supposed to be getting degrees while we're on active duty. We're not supposed to be making millions of dollars through our trade accounts. No, you join the military to serve this country, and that service may require you to be in other countries, or like we just saw in Los Angeles, what was 700 Marines were in the United States, and that's part of our service. That's what we signed up to do. When I left the military, the Navy, yet that combat was still in me, and it still wanted to be active. And through a process of self-healing, which involved range time, working with buddies, learning, studying, growing, even went through a period of therapy and worked on these things where, yes, if I got the call from Trump right now that I'm supposed to be on a bird headed for DC, you better believe it, I'm on that bird. But I have other things in life now. I had to separate that combat life and decisions and become the father, husband that I'm supposed to be. And yes, I'm a veteran. Now I'm a civilian. But the desire to serve the country is still there in whatever capacity is there. And it lingers with you for the remainder of your life.
Okay, that makes sense. My dad dealt with a lot of things before his passing, so I kind of just wondered if that was some of it. Perhaps it was. But one thing I want to ask you about also is that family piece. We talked a little bit offline about kind of building your life while you're still healing from stuff, So I'd like to know, what does it look like to lead your family specifically while still kind of healing, and you've been kind of honest about the challenges of marriage and family life. Speak to that a little bit if you can briefly. What is that like? How are you managing it? How's your family taking the changes that's happening in you? Kind of get into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, you bet. So like I said, from pretty much from 20 2000 to about 2015, I really lived this weak man mindset. And then about 2015, something inside of me snapped and said, Haley, you need to start becoming the man you're supposed to be. And I started to study and recover from the things the traumas and the weak man mentality that I lived for so long. And believe me, it's still the weak man still has a hiding place inside of me. And I have to deal with that. So in my family, the strong man began to grow. And my family was used to the weak man time. And the weak man was easy to push over and easy to go around, because I didn't want to ruffle feathers, or I wanted everybody to be like me, or whatever that was. And then when I started changing and I began to put away the weak man, become the strong man, the family kind of pushed back. Who's this new guy? Who's this jerk?
Wow.
Right? Because I was starting to look like a jerk. Because I was, hey, I want things done this way. I've never said that before. So now it appears like I'm becoming a dictator or an authoritarian. And so it took me a few years to kind of work on my language, work on my tone, so that I could I could separate from the military voice of do what I say when I tell you to do it to yeah, I've been accused of the military voice many, many times. And it's a part of me, but I had to learn to separate that and begin to talk in a manner in which was kind, loving, but also authoritative, and say, hey, I don't like the way we're doing this. We're going to do this now. And while for a little bit, there was a little pushback from the fam, but then they were like, no, this isn't Lee being a jerk. Lee is taking over the family. Lee is becoming the head of the household again. And as I became the head of the household and began to dictate the direction that the family was going, we began to actually grow together stronger. And now a request from me to my wife in love is received with love, and she does it because she knows I'm not doing it out of authority. I'm doing it out of, or asking, or making this request, or saying this is the way I want something done, because I'm looking down the road at the future of the Freeburgs, of this Freeburg unit. And where's this Freeburg unit going to end up? Well, it's going to end up down that road. And to get there, we're going to have to make these tough decisions. And maybe we're going to have to live through some broke times. Maybe we have to live in a duplex for a couple of years while we get ready to build the home that we desire, and things like that. And now they trust me to make those decisions, because as I made those decisions from 2015 to now, everything lines out in the direction, and they can see that, like, oh, I can look back at that event where Lee said this, and that led us to this, which now leads us to this, which now leads us to that direction we're going. Does that make sense?
It does make perfect sense. I definitely appreciate you sharing it too, man. It's good stuff, man. We talked a little bit about, what happened when you don't have clear examples growing up of how to be a man, how to be a father. We talked about the disciplined lifestyle, something that we both share and we agree is important to us. Why do you think men avoid that kind of lifestyle? Why do you think they avoid those things as tools and resources in their life? Why do you think that is?
I think men avoid that because it's hard, it's unknown, and it has the potential of rejection. I think as a man, the weak man wants approval from everybody. He wants everybody to like him, no matter who it is. And so he compromises and compromises and compromises. And pretty soon he doesn't even have an identity to claim as his own. He's just weak. And I think that's where men are now. Men have allowed the world around them, other people, their influencers, to force them down into a small little ball of unknown identity, and they don't even know who they are anymore. And so they're trying to make a place in the world without knowing their own self-awareness. They have no idea who they are as a man. And so they get run over, they get walked on, they get disrespected, spit on, trashed, called toxic. And the whole time they're just trying to become the man they're supposed to be, but it's hard, and it has a negative connotation to be a man. You know what I mean? Like, masculinity is toxic. And it's like, no. There is toxic masculinity, and that's a category of weak men who are subject to their emotions, they're subject to their baser instincts, and they live out the weak man lifestyle, and they create a toxic framework for the rest of us that gets pushed onto us. And it's like, no. That's not us. That's not me. I know that's not me. I've been there. I worked through that. And now as a man, I'm growing, I'm working, and I'm striving forward to be that strong man.
I love it, man. Well, we've almost out of time already, but this has been so good, man. Thanks for doing this. I got a few more questions for you, and then we'll go ahead and close out. I want to spend a little time talking about the emphasis of your book, How to Live a Better Life. Of course, you can find How to Live a Better Life by Lee Freeburg on Amazon right now. You can find it. And the link's going to be in the show notes in case you want to use that for easier access. How to Live a Better Life by Lee Freeburg. What's the goal for this book? You shared it with me, but I want you to share it with our listeners. This is a fantastic story. But what's the goal for this book, How to Live a Better Life? Why did you write this?
Well, I wrote this book for at the time, my 3-year-old daughter. My biological family has a history of heart disease, and 2 of my family members died at 45 years old from congestive heart failure. And I'm 44 now. And so I saw this short period of time that I would have to teach my daughter the fundamentals of life, of the life that I believe we're supposed to be living. And so I sat down and wrote this book, How to Live a Better Life. And originally the intent was just so that if something were to happen to me, she would kind of have like dad's words to live by. And then I was like, well, if I did all this work, why not publish this? And so I went ahead and published it on Amazon through the KDP system, which was pretty simple overall. And my goal with this book is really to help 16 to 20-year-olds or even adults figure out what it is, what the key fundamentals are that they should be teaching to their children. If you knew nothing more than these 6 things, you could live a successful life, whatever stage or place you are in life, if you follow these 6 basic fundamentals.
Okay. So you got 6 tips to living a better life.
You bet.
Real quick, without going into the book, I want people to read the book. What makes these tips different from the ones that we get all the time from other folks? 3 ways to do this, 7 ways to get this done, top 10 list of how you can do this. What makes this different, just overall, generally speaking, without divulging too much of your book?
The key to this book is focus. Each chapter focuses on something specific. I walk through each thing and bring your focus and your attention to that specific thing for a period of time, so that you're, for lack of a better word, enlightened. You're more aware of this thing. Sure. Now the reader has to make the choice to act on each chapter, and each chapter ends with questions and a suggested reading list, because I had to go somewhere else to learn this information, and so I'm going to share where I learned it to you, so that you can go back and possibly learn more than I had in my book.
Pretty cool. What's the number one thing you want to change about yourself, Lee? I don't have any Jeopardy music, so.
It's I want to change my insecurities. Even as getting a stronger man, I still have personal insecurities. And I was just dealing with it this week, making notes, journaling, praying about it, walking, talking about it. Like, my personal insecurities hold me back from doing some things in life. My personal insecurity actually held me back from doing podcasts until now. Now I'm facing that and doing podcasts.
I love it, man. I love it. Final question. This is customary for all of our guests. It usually causes them to think. It's a deep question, but I made you aware of it beforehand, so you were kind of ready, but wasn't sure if you had an answer. We're taking your Navy time off of the table, product design, all the work you did in entrepreneurship. What is Lee doing if he's not doing any of those things? What is he most likely to be doing? And don't say jail, something else. Most likely.
Yeah. I thought about this question since we talked, and I honestly believe if I had not gone to the Navy and I had to make a different life choice, I would actually be in ministry now, either like an associate pastor or youth pastor, somewhere in that line. Yeah.
Okay. Is that off the table still, or we just kind of just praying on that one?
We'll see.
Yeah, I hear you.
A year ago, June 16th, I preached my very first message a year ago, June 16th.
So you already doing this thing. You see, now we got to change that. We got to change your answer now. You're already doing some of this stuff. You might have to find a different answer. You're already doing something.
God opened the door and gave me the opportunity. So I said, yes, Lord, I'll do it. So it was, okay. I haven't since, but that one opportunity was there. So I took it.
All right. Well, if I take that off the table, what's going to be your answer instead of that then? If I take that away too, what's your answer?
Motivational speaker. Oh, absolutely.
Are you doing that too? Are you doing that one too?
No, I'm not doing that now. No.
All right. But Lee, this was awesome, man. Lee's book, How to Live a Better Life, is available on Amazon. Lee, if you get a chance, jump into our YouTube channel in the comment section under the episode where this interview is taking place, and drop your links there so that way they can find you in case they missed it in the show notes or they missed it during this live broadcast, man. But thanks again for jumping in here and doing this, man. This has been an awesome conversation. You got so many layers, brother. I can't wait for folks to meet you and hear more of your story, man.
Awesome. Thank you. This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, same here, but I really enjoyed this, man. For all you guys watching and listening, of course, you can jump in for our YouTube channel. Please like, share, and sub us out on our channel. Let's get some support from you guys. Continue to keep pushing Lee's story and his book and his works and everything. And thanks for watching and listening. And please subscribe to our show wherever you find us. And Lee and Mr. U, we're out of here. Have a fantastic day. Thanks again for listening.